To look through the top stories of today, we're delighted to be joined by the former Conservative Special Advisor Charlie Rowley and political commentator Dominic Moffitt. Good morning, gents. Thanks for coming back.
Morning.
Right then, where shall we start? I think it's the top one.
We were contractually obliged.
Yes. Well, after the last one, I thought you'd think, oh, not this again.
You decided not
You never
to
know what
join
goes
us
on in
then.
that green room. I never know. You know. Let's go to the crumbling red wall polling, shall we, Charlie?
Yes.
Labour's red wall starting to crack, according to exclusive polling for GB News. So Keir Starmer's mandate, fragility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, the biggest mistake that I think the Labour government made when they came in, obviously on a huge majority, there's no getting away about it, but it was built on such a thin turnout that the biggest mistake was to say, oh, the voters have voted for change, it's overwhelming, they've got this huge mandate now. And I think that they clearly missed the actual reality, which is that people just wanted to get rid of the Tories because of, the chopping and changing of internal politics, prime ministers coming and going every 5 minutes. And what the difference between the Labour government that came in and the previous Conservative government is that Boris Johnson recognised that people in the red wall lent their votes to the Tories, and that's why it was such a precious a coalition, one nation argument of voters that voted for the Tories. Labour have taken, again, it seems to me, that red wall for granted. They've come in just to say, as if they own the North, and they've been caught short, obviously, at the last local elections where reform have completely wiped them out in Lincolnshire, obviously in Durham, in Nottinghamshire, in Derbyshire, places that you should be. You would have thought, traditionally Labour strongholds and Conservative strongholds, reform have come in through the middle. So, I can understand why people who voted Labour in 2024 now have buyer's remorse.
Is it that they're taking people for granted, or is it, though, that they just don't understand? And after those catastrophic local election results, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said, I get it, we just need to go further and faster. But of course, that's not what people are asking at all. People's number one concern now is immigration in those particular areas, and yet the government does not seem to be making any progress on that, just as the last government didn't.
Well, I think you're right to identify that the public don't think that the Labour government gets it. The polling shows that, and the polling numbers in here say, that 50% of the public don't think that the Labour government get it. That's not the strategy, though. I think the Labour government have got a strategy. Now, it's clearly not working yet, but for them, it doesn't have to work yet. The plan is for it to work in 2029 at the next general election. And further and faster is certainly quite a divisive term even within the Labour Party. Further and faster means all things to all men, hopefully, I think is the plan. But unfortunately, it actually means nothing to most people.
Yes.
Until they take some actual concrete action. But that's what they think they're doing. They're hoping that voters will feel better off on polling day 2029.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Well, Dominic, let's move to the Mail now, because Nigel Farage has the Saturday essay in the paper today, and they have put out those plans. Obviously, they haven't got to deliver them right away, but they've put out some of their commitments now for the next general election. Freezing immigration, a target of a 0% population increase through immigration as well. They want to lift the threshold for tax to £20,000, abolish net zero, revive North Sea oil and gas. A lot of criticism for Reform is that they haven't got a plan and their plans won't work, but this is quite a significant list of ideas coming through now.
This is a list of sort of populist policy that I'm not remotely surprised that Nigel Farage is advocating. These are things that have worked for him, for UKIP, for Reform, for Brexit Party, whatever form he's taken over the last 25 years. But what they aren't is they're not a credible and a kind of legitimate policy for government. It'll be very interesting to see how they translate into local government where Reform are in power.
Because, Charlie, a lot of those policies were in the Reform manifesto and were ridiculed by economists. I mean, taking people out of tax until £20,000 income, that's a massive tax break for the wealthy, completely unaffordable. And yet, does that really matter? Are people just so frustrated with mainstream politicians that they don't really care what Reform are offering? They're not the Tories and they're not Labour.
I think there's an element of that. I think what's so significant for Reform is that it's not just talking about what, as Dominic rightly said in the past, Nigel Farage has talked about immigration. So whether it's in UKIP, whether it was in the Brexit Party, protecting our borders, for example, it was all based on immigration. Now, that domestic agenda has expanded. Plans, as you say, taking people out of tax up until £20,000. That will, yes, it will be significant to the wealthy, but it will impact, I think, more proportionally on those on the lower end of the income scale. Having not to pay a single penny in tax up until £20,000. I think if you're a low-income worker, that's music to your ears.
But for a potentially right-wing party, I mean, it's just daft, because if you don't pay tax, what's to stop you voting for a socialist government to spend other people's money? Surely a party like Reform would want more people to have skin in the game so that they have an interest in how government money is spent.
Is that how it works? You spend more tax and suddenly you're more inclined to vote right-wing?
Absolutely. People who pay a lot of tax are inclined to vote for tax-cutting parties. If you pay no tax, why would you vote for a party that cuts tax? You'd vote for a party that wants to spend more of other people's money.
It implies to me you should raise taxes to keep Tory voters, but I'm not...
No, the opposite.
All right, well...
Lower the percentage tax, so take it from 20 to 15, but don't change the threshold.
I'm not sure about this, as you said, Dominic, being a populist promotion, as you're sort of used to them doing. I mean, the language last week with those local election results, you heard Nigel Farage talking about tradesmen getting up at 5 a.m, going out to work hard, they pay their taxes and they see it going, frankly, to failed asylum seekers in their local area or small boat migrants. This seems to me like an expansion of their product, of what they're selling to people, targeting more middle-class professionals who actually also think they're getting kind of shafted by the system at the moment.
Well, Reform sit at a really interesting point in politics, don't they? They are a party led by people of the right wing, but as a party, they draw votes, and certainly at the most recent elections, almost equally from left and right. So they have to have policy statements that appeal. We know from on the kind of doors in Runcorn that narratives around cutting the NHS or privatising the NHS were very effective at driving Labour voters back to Labour away from Reform. Clearly, 6 votes.
Yeah, not enough.
Too short.
Yeah.
But we know that's true. But I also know from my experience that there are people you speak to on the doorstep who have been Labour voters, who have been Liberal Democrat voters, have been Green voters, who voted Reform this month. That's a strange place to be. And when we talk about Boris Johnson built an electoral coalition based on people who had voted everything in the past. That's what Nigel Farage is currently doing.
Interesting times.
Absolutely. I mean, very quickly, I think the key thing that he's saying in the essay is that Britain is broken. And whether it's on crime, whether it's on immigration, whether it's on tax, whether it's on spend, whether it's working with the unions, as Nigel said that he will do because he wants to take Scunthorpe, for example. He is all things to all men at the minute and women, and I think that's where that coalition is forming, and that's why voters are turning to Reform.
All right, Charlie, Dominic, thank you very much.